This might be the first time I've ever done a podcast with someone in a tie.
He said
I
the
like
same
it.
thing. It's
Yeah.
St. Patrick's Day. It's
Oh,
Oh,
the
okay.
only
perfect.
St. Patrick's Day thing I have. So I'm like, okay, well, we're getting a
That and
tie.
hepatitis.
Yeah.
Good thing we're recording.
Hell yeah. That's
Yeah,
why we
that's
are.
going to make the final cut.
There we go. All the pre-show fun. Welcome to In the Spotlight. I'm Kyle Pearson.
And I am John Horton, and we are joined here by the creative team behind Sweet Meat. This is Ricky Glore
Whoop,
and
whoop.
Nicholas Hiance.
Hello,
Gentlemen.
everyone.
How are you doing this evening?
I am good. How are you, John Horton and Kyle Pearson?
I'm doing
Fantastic.
good. How about you, Kyle?
Happy St. Patrick's Day, you know?
Happy St. Patrick's Day. Everyone's been commenting about my tie, but it's
Everyone.
themed for today. So
Everyone's been commenting about it. It has been so annoying. You can't even leave your home. You're sequestered and boarded up like a zombie apocalypse.
exactly. Everyone's done with me already. They're like, kiss me, I'm Irish. Why don't you just kiss my ass? So I get it. I get it. Well, thank you both for joining us today. This is fantastic. We appreciate you lending us your time. We know this is a busy week for you with the big premiere coming up.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having us on. We are always happy to talk to anyone who's watched whatever we've created, good, bad, or indifferent. If you have the most heinous, hateful things to say about what we've created, we will cry, but we will listen and we will take our medicine.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. I'm starting to watch this film, and I'm like, okay, where are we going with this? Because he gets you right off the top, and then the next thing I know, I'm like, okay, this is a musical. Nope, it's a comedy. Nope, it's a little mix of everything. And as it goes, it gets better and better, and I'm laughing harder, and I'm really getting into this. And the chemistry of the cast, I thought, was phenomenal. And one thing I was telling John, because we shot a review of this that we're going to post just before we air this, is
Awesome.
that a good sign for me?
Oh,
'Cause
good. You won't tell us. You won't tell
Yeah,
us. You'll just
no,
throw us
no, we'll
under
tell
the
you a little
bus.
bit.
Be like, yeah, you guys are so good. The review's just like,
Yeah. Then you
just,
watch it, and you're like, what a
just
piece
donkey shoes. Like these guys are.
No, but honestly, usually, like a lot of independent films, you watch it once, and you're like, oh, that was interesting, or that was good. But when you leave a film and you keep thinking about it afterwards, and you remember, like, you know what, that was really funny, and that was really good, and that was very clever, and you keep thinking about it after you're done watching it. That to me is always a sign of a great film. And this one was a total shock at just how good it was. And it just kept getting better as it went on. I mean, I was genuinely thrilled by it because we were talking like, God, I hope this is good since we're interviewing these guys. It's like, please
Kyle,
be good. Please
Kyle,
be
you had
good.
me on
And
a
it turned
roller
out to
coaster
be.
there for a minute. I thought you were going to just be like, and this film was none of those things, folks. The next 20 minutes is going to be brutal. Speaking of brutal, I saw a new review for our first film, All Your Friends Are Dead, came in a few days ago, or maybe last month on Letterboxd. So before you build us up too much with Sweetmeats, let me read this review real quick for our first film, All Your Friends Are Dead. Thought I was finishing Cabin Fever 2 because I was watching it on Tubi 2. The lack of room tone and the difference of quality of sound with each microphone is very annoying. I give
Yeah.
it no stars.
Oh,
Wish
no.
I could take back my time that I wasted.
Oh,
So,
no. I mean, I
just
agree with the first part of it, but I mean,
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
wish I could take back. I mean, yeah, sound. That was going into Sweetmeats, like one of the primary things that we criticized amongst a list full of other things. That the one thing that I think Hyance and I benefit from where we're currently at is the criticism that we are eagerly wanting to hear about things. Nothing that we heard on our first film that was made for $5,959. All Your
Holy
Friends Are
cow.
Dead. Um, we had already made the same critiques ourselves. So like that review saying like the sound goes in and out, no room tone, blah blah blah. We were like, yeah, we didn't pay anyone to do sound. That's why like the Braden Firestone who did the sound mix and the score for the movie, he actually had to the main this is to talk about All Your Friends Are Dead, but just the growth, like we do try to learn and get better each time. So like even if something in All Your Friends Are Dead that you have an issue with, if you have something like with in Sweetmeats, we're gonna try to make it better for the next thing we do. We didn't realize the location we picked for All Your Friends Are Dead was next to an airport because when we checked it out, it was on the
Oh.
weekday and there weren't a lot of flights coming in and out. And then when we filmed primarily on the weekend for that film in the camp sequences, there were planes going overhead. There were it was like drag races going by. Like it was the worst. And we didn't have a sound person. We had sometimes a boom mic operator who was also wearing 1,000 other hats. Um, so then Braden Firebrand, who did the mix and the score, he actually had to add airplanes, so there was a consistent sound of an airplane going from scene to
Oh,
scene. And
wow.
stupidly, we made this joke while editing that movie. There's a character that says about having a private jet that dropped him down there. We could have 80-yard a line being like, and that's my private jet flying above us. And we didn't do it. But we learned to be like, sometimes you comment on the inadequacies or the budget or the nature of your film, and sometimes you don't. Like Sweetmeats in the opening narration, we had a thing stating that it was 1978, but like you're going to see a bunch of anachronisms because it's a fairy tale and it's a kid's books. Nick was like, "No, we should cut that." Because let's not call out our like what we messed up on. And he's like, "Isn't there a way? Couldn't we just cut out that we mentioned that 78? It's a kid's book. It's a fairy tale. So it's kind of like Star Wars. It's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far. Like it is the 70s, but it's the 70s through a Golden Leaf-esque book. There's gonna be like some inaccuracies probably."
I really didn't notice in watching it anything wrong with the film at all. I enjoyed it. I loved the
Oh,
way the ending felt like a shot on video, where it says, "I need to find more friends." I just felt so not in the quality of, but in the type of movie it was. With that line, I was like, this is like a shot on video thing, and I it didn't look that way, but that's the feeling I got from it.
it did a little bit. I mean, Mike Flincham, who is a producer on that film and played Hardware Store Bob, who is Bob Sweets the Third in Sweetmeats, um, the special effect where the guy gets the hedge trimmer across his stomach and All Your Friends Are Dead, that is
Yeah.
Mike Flincham. He built that gag and he was the stand-in for that, and he's a huge SOV guy. So like if there is any like SOV nods, it's definitely during that chunk of the movie because we filmed the beginning and the end at the end of the movie. We filmed all that last, so there's a reason why there's a little bit more of a cohesiveness I think between the beginning and the end that doesn't
Yeah.
exist in the middle because we filmed the middle first to get our funding. But can I selfishly and grossly ask you a question since you've seen the Nick Hyance, Ricky Glore filmography of features? What did you feel was the biggest difference between All Your Friends Are Dead? Biggest difference or biggest growth, if there were any, between All Your Friends Are Dead and Sweetmeats?
I was in radio for several years and I produced a morning show and we did a lot of comedy bits. And it was amazing how you would have to pull up the high end and bring down the back end because a lot of people on their speakers it would have the opposite way for the music, and we're trying to get lyrics across because we're doing parody songs. And one thing that really drove me crazy at that time in my life was if I wore headphones, and I remember watching Star Wars with headphones on, I could hear every edit that was made in a sentence. I could tell when Carrie Fisher talked, that was three different takes edited together. And it drove me crazy because I'm like, why? This is not something I'm going to live the rest of my life with every time I see a movie, hearing all this stuff. So I quit watching anything with headphones.
I'm afflicted by my
Yeah.
knowledge of proper editing.
Yeah, it really bothered. I didn't think it would, and it did.
Mhm.
So when I watched the first one, All Your Friends Are, yeah, I did notice the audio cuts, and I'm like, okay, well, I also know that you probably didn't have, I didn't realize that the budget was only $5,000, but I knew it was small. Um, and for the second film, I'm like, okay, this has already been an improvement. Where you can, because there's also a lot of, maybe the music should have been here and it wasn't. It may have could have crossed
Hmm.
over from scene to scene just to try to pull it together instead of like a big snap cut. Now we're over here and a snap cut. We're over here. And in this one, there was fewer of those. It was like bam, it seemed like it flowed better. Um, Especially when you were jumping back and forth to the musical numbers, which at one point that's one of the things that John and I talked about in our review, is that we're like, okay, where is this going? It is funny, and is this going to be distracting? And as it keeps going on, there's a lot of them where that could be something that could pull somebody apart, pull somebody
Hmm.
away from the film. But it's also comedic, so it seemed to just have a natural flow to it that I think in the previous film, if you tried something like that, it wouldn't have worked, because
Hmm.
there were these other edits that were a little, you know, bizarre. I also think what I liked about the first one, there was good chemistry with the actors and actresses on the first film, but the second film, it felt like everybody had been friends forever, and we
Hmm.
we we were talking about whether or not, because we weren't sure if the film had been crowdfunded or not.
Hmm.
But we were like, okay, there's not a lot of opportunities if people are paying to be in the movie for them to be, because you did the scene with the yearbook, and
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, here we go. You're gonna start flipping through 70 pages of yearbooks just so everybody can get their picture in, and we're gonna be sitting here for 5 minutes.
Damn it, that's a great
Yeah.
idea.
I
Sorry.
know. I'm
Are we allowed
upset.
are we allowed to curse on your
Oh
podcast?
yeah, go
Absolutely.
Okay.
ahead.
That's a
Fuck
great
yeah.
fucking idea.
Yeah.
Like we should have, because we crowdfunded, we kickstarted All Your Friends Are Dead, and I think got close to 10,000 at the final goal, which means you clear like 8,000 or whatever. And so that
Mhm.
wasn't fully put towards the budget of film, because what a lot of people don't know, to get your film seen, there's a great website called Film Freeway, a lot of free film festivals, but festivals cost money. The bigger, the better the festival that you're just submitting to, with a lottery chance of getting selected. We've submitted to a festival that's connected to a convention that Nick and I have attended near us, who has rejected both of our movies. And Sweetmeats
Really?
was produced by Troma. Like
Wow.
but again, like I understand the political nature of like knowing
Yeah.
people and like hobnobbing and stuff, and like not even anything nefarious,
Hmm.
whatever. But we spent over $3,000 to get All Your Friends Are Dead into festivals that I think I just sent the laurels to Nick. What was it, like 10 festivals we
Yeah.
got into with that movie? So that means we probably submitted to over 100,
Wow.
mostly genre festivals that they sometimes ask on Film Freeway, would you like to hear any criticism if the festival has it, especially if rejected? And I always click yes, because I would love to hear it. Um, and the criticism that we got from these genre horror festivals was your movie plays more like a comedy. So that is something very apparent that we weren't even aware of until we had the premiere of All Your Friends Are Dead at the Esquire, that people were laughing at areas that were like, well, yeah, that was supposed to be humorous, but this is getting way bigger of a response than we expected. And some of the characters where the actors did a good job and acted the way they were directed, where they're playing a little bit more sincere, and All Your Friends Are Dead. That's why there's a little bit of unevenness. So one thing that Nick and I were really cognizant of with Sweetmeats is we need to realize what the tone is from jump one. Like,
Yeah.
because now if we went back and did All Your Friends Are Dead, I don't think I would have been as precious with maybe like the Lori and Larry characters that I did. I probably would have made it even more Wizard of Oz feeling, that each one of these friends represent a piece of Matt Wilby, blah blah blah, whatever. But Sweetmeats, we actually talked about those kind of things, and we're just like, hey everybody, this is the vibe we're going for. It's almost like it's a documentary, like a VH1 behind the music documentary, or like a VH1 made for VH1 TV movie about the Temptations. But it's like everyone's a little off and shit is a little bit over dramatized. But because of the nature of Nick filming, what's the name of the mount that you use so you could like freeform just like
Oh yeah, we just use a monopod, just a
monopod?
fancy monopod, basically. Yeah.
And so that made you feel like you were in, and we had the actors like Eileen Ernest and Timmy Barron and Andrew Gordon. Like Eileen and Timmy, especially, are improvisers, and Eileen is a great actress in local theater in Cincinnati and also abroad. But so we knew with the lack of budget and money for setups, which we didn't have money for lighting still because we were still working at a low budget for sweetmeats, $22,047.59. It's crazy to say that it's three times more than All Your Friends Are Dead, but I also think it also has a lot of more moving parts, especially sound. But we were like, okay, what's a choice that we can do? Because I'm still not behind a monitor or a camera. Nick's behind the camera. I'm still in front of the camera, something that we want to not do in the next movie. I want the lead, whoever the leads are, to not be me. I want to just direct. But what do we have as a benefit? Well, we have people who can do really good acting in one take. So let's do it. As theatrical as it feels, if we are leaning into that kind of documentary style, we have the people to do it. And so that is something I think looking at Sweetmeats, we're like, well, we know we know we can do funny. Let's just lean into that more. And it's just kind of wrapped in this like gift package of it's a horror movie, like, but it's really a dark comedy, like kind of a dark deadpan multi-camera comedy or single camera if it's documentary.
Yeah.
For me, it felt like the characters were better written, so to speak. In Sweetmeats, I thought there was a better chemistry with them and the way they meshed together on screen. I also thought the lighting was a lot. I think you had some real areas that you had to light a lot more so in Sweetmeats. I could be wrong.
We didn't light.
But
That's Nick
really,
Hiance. That's Nick Hiance behind the camera,
wow.
figuring out what
It
the
was
natural lighting of each place was,
Okay.
There
or
was
what
kind
the
of like the
scene.
progression with the audio. Obviously, with the audio, we were able to hire in some people to get proper, so we're recording it properly. But it always like with the lighting and just knowing that we are already at a disadvantage. We're shooting this thing in a week. How can we utilize the restaurant front panes of glass with all the natural light coming in as opposed to the fluorescents above, and just making sure that we're paying attention of it instead of not even thinking about it and be like, oh, maybe we get lucky once or twice, but just trying to mold everybody to kind of be in the right spot so that we're hitting, at least they're, not in shadow or overblown or anything.
You also
But I,
probably had the benefit that it was indoors where most of the previous film was
Yes.
outdoors.
But
And the
that so the
elements.
benefit of All Your Friends Are Dead was crazily that yes, there are differences throughout that, but the biggest change happens actually in sequence when it starts getting dark and it's at the end when the killer is going after Matt Wilby and Greg. It actually started to rain right before that, so we had to do him buried in the ground with his guts hanging out
Oh,
the
okay.
following weekend because it had rained. But similarly, though, so that whole area was canopied with like leaves. So there was a weird, like more than should have been consistency with lighting. That was luck. But again, Nick behind the camera, still, even though there are some issues and we're learning, was able to make it look pretty consistent with Sweetmeats. What Nick was just saying about like shooting the restaurant, we used the buffalo. We used the front of the restaurant, the back of the restaurant, the outside of the restaurant, the outside front of the restaurant. Bobby Mackey's, we used the basement in almost like every single way possible with no set deck. So anything that looks creepy, minus like the theater chairs that people are restrained to in Sweetmeats, it's all Nick just using the lighting that they had. Like when the meat grinder is revealed, there is only one light that we used, and that was a small little box light you can get off of Amazon, sitting in the meat grinder, pointed a certain way. And then when we did different takes, like Rodriguez style, would be like, okay, so the Nick knew like the edit is gonna happen here and the light turns here, like to almost look like we do have a lighting package, which we don't have time for with the run and gun nature that we do. But I have heard people who have watched Sweetmeats multiple times now. They're like, "Oh man, it gets better every time because I'm picking up on something." Something I think Nick did is we never filmed the restaurant the same way twice for good. Like each as the movie's progressing, like at the beginning, it's big and it's empty and it's drab. And like we had one day where we shot extras inside and we used multiple different scenes, and you can see the same people repeating. But the restaurant feels like bigger in nature of like being packed with people, even though we didn't have a ton. We used them outside, inside, and then the lighting to then the end of the movie, which we also didn't set deck that restaurant in Harrison, Ohio. That just is a Greek restaurant named Nick's Restaurant that looks like it was untouched by time. Um, Benefit of that. By the end, when Laddie says to Bobby, like, the investors are coming, are you ready? He's like, yeah, I'm ready. And she's like, well, why? And he's like, because I'm Bobby fucking Sweet. It's the only time we ever filmed at the golden hour where that light was rear coming in behind Bobby through that weird stained glass, like something like religion, like people are asking like what the inspiration was for Laddie, and I was like, well, it's Lady Macbeth, Lady Laddie. And Grook is the last name of Lady Macbeth. That is her surname. But there's also something like Tammy Faye Baker and Dolly Parton. Like once she makes her transformation, that like with that stained glass, there's something holy and almost like Catholic about that restaurant with that weird stained glass. That I know Nick made a joke when we were editing. He's just like, look, this was not my intention. But every time that Laddie basically reapproaches Bobby with a like handshake with the devil deal, like Faustian deal, because there's three of those scenes. He's like, there's an exit sign above them, and Bobby goes the opposite way of the exit sign. Like, look, he could get out at any fucking moment.
No, no,
And I
no,
was
no,
like,
no. No, that was all planned. I had planned that. Yeah.
That is how good he is.
with subconsciously, he's that good.
He doesn't even know how good he is. Well, I'd like to also bring up, because we were talking about, Eileen and everybody in the chemistry, because when we were talking about actually the crowdfunding, was all the actors cast in this movie, or did any of them pay to play a role? Because it feels like there is no crowdfunding in this, because between the fact that you had the opportunity to do all those shots and you didn't, and how good of performance everybody gave. I mean, the pizza sequence is phenomenal.
I
And when it
cannot
was
wait until this Saturday with a packed audience at the premiere, because I keep on telling Kim, who played the pizza guy, I'm like, dude, you gotta be there because people are gonna
he's got to
hate
hear
you
it. He's got
or
to
they're
hear the
gonna
audience.
love you.
Yes, yes.
I'll,
And the woman that was returning her food.
that's my
And
mother-in-law,
Oh
by
my
the
oh,
way.
is
God,
it?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Not an actress. Her daughter, my wife, is who plays pregnant lady, who was pregnant with her twins at the
Mhm.
time. Who she's also pregnant lady, and all your friends are dead. That's just a joke. She was just always be a pregnant lady in something. Um, I wrote Surly Shirley, and I asked my mother-in-law because she's not like a shy person, like her daughter
Mhm.
also isn't, who is an actress and an educator, but Brenda, my mother-in-law, was also a teacher. I was just like, "Hey, you want to read the script and possibly play this part?" And she read it, and she's like, "So much." She's just like, "I would love to play just this awful person whose name is like what she is. She is Surly Shirley." And that was so.
Yeah.
Kim, the pizza guy, is a comedian I've worked with for 20 years, a stand-up. We started around the same time in Newport, Kentucky, but I wrote, so he's the detective at the end of All Your Friends Are Dead. And that is a weird character, but it's very reserved for him. He's very verbose and he's very high energy. So for this, I wrote that part specifically for him, and I named the character Kim just because I always have heard that story of like if you've written a part for someone and you name the character after them, it just kind of like sweetens it a little bit more of just being like, look, you can't say no. I wrote this for you. Your name is in. You can't erase ink. I can't
Clever.
backspace. But so I wrote it and I said to him, I said, hey, you don't have to play the serious cop, the weird, serious Lynchian cop this time. You can be something more fun. We can have fun when we film. And he was just like, I just he's like, I don't want this to be offensive like towards gays. And I was like, no, 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 no. I was like, there's no you don't have to worry about that. This is not you're not gonna play it gay. You wanna fuck pizza. Like you just like it's not there's nothing gay. Like you don't want to have sex with Bobby. Like you have no interest in him. It's just like you want to give this piece of pizza so you can wrap it around your hog and go outside and get it pregnant. Like that's and he was like, oh, I could do that.
Well, he was phenomenal. He was
So,
everybody was phenomenal.
Nick, I will turn it over to you. Why is Eileen, besides her being crazy talented, I mean, Andrew Gordon being crazy talented, he's the only person that came from actual casting. We've had a agency around here put out a casting notice, and he answered. And you're supposed to watch every audition, even if you think you found the person, even though it can be a slog. But he is literally the first audition that I saw for the character Nick, who he is that age.
Mhm.
He just looks good. The Joe Bob Briggs review came out, and they said like Timmy, who plays Jerry, his son, looks to be the same age as him, while Bobby looks to be a good 10 years older than the guy who's playing the dad of these kids. Like, there's a little bit of humor with that that we play with, but with Andrew came out of the actual casting was phenomenal. Timmy, I had done stuff improv and sketch comedy and plays with in Chicago, and he's a fantastic, hilarious actor who this the primary story of Sweetmeats was adapted from a storefront black box musical show I did called Fleetwood Macbeth, where it was Macbeth set in a radio station in the 70s, and the music was Fleetwood Mac music. And so
Oh my God.
He played Banky, who is Banquo, and in that iteration, my wife played Lady, who was the sister of Banky. So that's the first time that I did the Macbeth where I've just made them familial. So not only your lover's best friend, really his soulmate that he then has to make a decision like, well, do I betray him or not? So Eileen, luckily being available to do Sweetmeats, Nick, why would we have ever even thought like, should we work with Eileen again?
Why? I mean, first off, I'm not sure if you're fishing for something, but she is just amazing. Yeah, he didn't. I was like, text me what you want me to say. No, she just
What's the reason
amazing.
after all your friends are dead?
Oh, because we
That's my
killed her off
fishing.
first.
We killed her off too soon. Like
Yeah,
we fucked
Yeah.
up.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
like watching the movie, we're like, huh. And it's not that other and like everybody else is doing a really a good performance. I would say minus myself until I get to the end. Um, I think Eileen, when we watched the movie, we're just like, man, she sparkle. Like, not only does she bring a character to life and two very different characters while also having very similar traits, like, you just like, I want to watch more of her. And then when we got rid of her and all your friends are dead, it was just like, we messed up.
And just like working with her, she gets our vibe, and like, just what we give, she gives back tenfold. And it's just, and especially like Timmy came on a few days, kind of like midway through our shoot for
Yeah.
Sweetmeats, and he's phenomenal. And so he just brings it. And so Eileen was able to like finally, she's like, oh, somebody
Finally.
equal, on my level. And then, just watching them two like elevate as they just play off of each other was amazing. And so, as Ricky mentioned, we did mostly 1 to 2 takes, only times, only a few times, maybe technical issues or somebody's like, hey, can I do that again? But then we would, we do that 1 or 2, and if anybody had any ideas or, just like real quick things, like I mentioned, so most of the camera setup was on just like a monopod. So we were able to move around the restaurant super quick. Chris Morris, one of our producers, and then, wears a million hats also, was helping me run the camera. So we would kind of trade off and on. to kind of keep the flow going as long as the actors are ready to go. And so just being able to be spontaneity and, run around that restaurant and then capture Eileen, Timmy, Ricky, yeah, Andrew, just all those people were just so amazing.
Was
Yeah,
there a
no,
Well,
lot
you,
of ad lib on the film?
I'll answer that, but I will. I want to finish with the people who paid to be in the movie. We did crowdfund. We got so we tried to make a movie called Open House where we tried to do Kickstarter again. Didn't even get close because it was another horror musical. It's where Sweet Meats comes from. It's kind of like a X to Pearl of the Ty West trilogy with Maxine idea, where Open House was this a set in current day movie where the restaurant Sweetmeats exists. And then while we were trying to make that happen, we were in pre-production, we had a cast and everything. We just had to get funds. We couldn't reach our goal. While we were in production for that, I started, Mike Flincham and I literally were like hypothesizing via text. And I think eventually with Nick, I think I shared it with. But we were like, all right, well, where did the restaurant come from? Like, where is the origin story of the restaurant and who came behind it? Mike Flincham's grandfather is Bobby Mackey. So, like, him already being hardware store Bob and all your friends are dead, we're like, well, what if Bobby Mackey was embroiled in this story of like this fast food restaurant and this chain or whatever, like basically your lineage. And so we came up with this idea and this outline. And when Open House, we couldn't get our funding to make it. We had to put the kibosh on it. We already had the restaurant that we were going to film the commercials at. So we went to crowdfunding, and that's how we got connected to Trauma. Was Lloyd agreed to help promote the crowdfunding and do a cameo in the movie before being like, hey, are you guys connected with any distribution or anything? And we were like, no. And he's just like, we should talk. I think this might be a great film to be part of the Trauma filmography, the Trauma catalog. And so, as I mentioned with All Your Friends Are Dead, of paying a lot for film festivals and not getting in many, that was the most alluring thing about Trauma is he's just like, well, we do X amount of conventions. We have all these different things where people will see your film. But one of the things we offered was to get killed in Sweetmeats. So, or we did a call to local extras. So any extra that you see in the celebration shot where they're giving the 100th burger, those are all people, even all those cars, except for the 77 Trans Am, are people who were just like, you're filming this movie here? How can we get involved? The mascot costume that was that big weird like mustache chef character was the guy who owned the I think it's a maroon Camaro or something of the ilk muscle car with the white racing stripes that you see. They just had that mascot costume, and then we were like, we'll find a way to include it. That's called production value. And so, but then there were some kills like Darrell Dennis, who is affiliated with some horror conventions. He paid to get killed and traveled in and was at Bobby Mackey's. So him, the guy who gets so that's Darrell who gets his neck sliced open. And I wish that could have looked a little bit better, but he did a great job. The guy who gets his eyeball scooped out with the little melon baller. John Ellis, he paid to get killed. Robert Rose and his wife were the couple that get their fingers chopped off behind Elizabeth Metcalf, who's a fantastic local actress. Who's Elizabeth Metcalf is the one who slams up against the glass and gets pulled away. She was first in our short film Roadkill. So then Nick Greystone of Demon Scar, how we got connected was he is in that metal band Demon Scar, and he's like, yeah, I want to pay to get killed. And this is before we started filming the movie. And I was just like, oh my gosh. I was like, I think we could have this whole subplot of different ways to connect Nick, Laddie, and Jerry. There's only a few familial moments that connect them, that they are a family without them looking like one another, because obviously they don't. But one is Jerry loves Demon Scar, and he's the outlier of the family. Laddie and Nick, his sister and dad, hate Demon Scar, this metal band. The other thing that they share is they all love hiding things and revealing them. So Laddie reveals the Burger King crown, Nick reveals the contract, the bag, and the bottle of whiskey from the drawer, from that like little compartment. And then Jerry at the end reveals that he has a full-on Bobby's guitar hidden inside. So those are the three things that connect them as a family. But Nick Greystone, who paid to get killed in the movie, he's like, I'm with this metal band, Demon Scar, in New York City. We're going to be playing the show in Pennsylvania at Jason's Woods. You could come, and maybe we could do a song for the show, and you could film us there, and that could be our death scene. And I was just like, oh yeah. I was like, I can track like what the storyline is with the characters that we have and who they are based on their what's already on the script. This will just easily fit. We'll put the music video at the end of you guys getting killed. And because of all that now, Nick Graystone's an executive producer on the movie and has done a ton to promote us. And when we went up to New York City for
Trauma Dance.
Trauma Dance, I stayed with him and he drove us around New York for a whole like what Saturday night or whatever. So we did have the crowdfunding people come in. So the ad lib thing, I turn this to you, Nick, because obviously you were Trace Walker, our assistant director, and our screen coordinator, our script supervisor, which those are two jobs not one person should ever do. If anybody's making a film and you want advice, a script supervisor and an assistant director. The script supervisor is like, that's not what you have written, or that's not going to work because this, and this for continuity. But the assistant director is like, we need to move on. So that being one role is very hard. And then you have Nick and I, who started filming sketch comedy for cable access shows in 2004, and for like MySpace, like we have this shorthand or this idea where we're like, because Nick comes from reading Rebel Without a Crew in high school. We met at a 7:30 a.m. art class our senior year. I didn't know Nick. We're at the same table. There's like 5 people at one table, and he says, "Did you see there's a new zombie movie coming out?" And obviously, this is me rewriting this now. I don't have this verbatim. But George Romero was coming out with Land of the Dead. And I was just like, yeah, like it's going to be the 4th Night of the Living Dead movie. And he's just like, yeah, he's like, yeah, you like those movies? I was like, yeah. And so like we ended up going and seeing that movie. And then we asked each other out on a date to a Mexican restaurant. And he's just like, this place would be a cool place to shoot like a Robert Rodriguez movie. And I was like, who's that? He's like, you've never saw El Mariachi or Desperado, the guy who has the guitar case? And I was like, no. And so like we swapped history of the stuff I had grown up with. Even to this day, like he introduced Jean-Claude Van Damme to me, which is now like I think a genre of its own that we want to make eventually a Jean-Claude Van Damme like 90s action movie. But the thing that Nick hasn't forgotten about Rebel Without a Crew with Robert Rodriguez is he's editing the movie in his head while he's shooting. So ad libs, I turn it over to you because you had to get stuff that you knew would flow and connect eventually in the edit.
Yeah, so with Ricky, being the writer and director in front of the camera, we do it we just keep saying wear a lot of hats, right? But at this level and this budget. So one of the things I kind of established like really early with everybody was just like, I'd actually heard I think it was Clint Eastwood give an interview of one of his first films, and I'd butcher it, but basically he was walking across the room and the director yelled cut, and he's like, but I'm in the middle of this scene, in this middle of this line, doing this thing. But the director was, talked to him. He's just like, oh, I got that shot. We don't need to continue on. So that's one of the things that when it comes to ad-libbing and stuff, yeah, it's Ricky and I have like the opposite problem. He'll he's in front of the camera and he'll yell cut, and I'd be like, what are you doing? Eileen was on an amazing riff, like just
there's so many end of scenes in Sweet Meat that we had to cut the audio of me saying cut because everyone else was giving a really good fucking performance, and I'm just like, God, we got it. Nick's like, no. So we have a rule. That's something we learned for the next movie. I'm never calling cut. It will be hard, but there's no reason. Why would I call cut? It's not like we're filming on actual film. It's digital. Like, let it run. But
And
yeah,
then
That's
so I
like
true. That's true. You don't
the
have to have
exact
titles
opposite
anymore.
is, often yell cut, at like somebody finishes a
Mhm.
line and they go to turn or do something, and I'm just like, cut. And I established with all the actors and actresses, just make, are you comfortable with me doing this? And everybody was on board. That just goes back to just like working with Timmy and Eileen that are so great. And Andrew, everybody was amazing. But just like if we know we got it, and this is our, let's move on, and then we can go to something more fun where then we can like let it roll. But if it's just one or two lines that we're trying to get out, or just establish some certain shot, so it's just this fine balance of just trying to like figure out, when to let everybody run and just go with it until basically this, you just throw your hands to look at the camera as the actor, be like, I'm done. Like I have nothing left in the tank for this one. So let's call this and move on. But no, there's a ton of moments and little things where I think as the characters became more, or everybody came more comfortable with their character, that they were able to like explore and kind of do some mannerisms and things like that really shine through. So if we're not necessarily ad-libbing, we're definitely getting a better performance out of letting our people just kind of play in that sandbox.
Yeah, I know Eileen because we were able to do some rehearsals with her in the space of Nick's, where then we then doubled that as Bobby Mackey's for her rehearsals. Because the first day we filmed was me, Eileen, and Andrew Gordon, who played Nick, in the basement for his death scene and falling into the meat grinder. But when we rehearsed with the two of them, because Timmy wasn't as local, um, we rehearsed those scenes, and Eileen would say she's really good about asking questions of not being like an asshole, of just being like what does this mean? Like this doesn't make sense. Like, but she's like invested of just being like, hey, writer director, and also person in the scene with me, why? Like, why is like what is going on here? Like, and she does like the backstory, and it helps her, and it makes us look better too, because it's another level of, I think, a collaboration, where if she calls something out of like recognizing a repetition of something or whatever, that will be like, oh yeah, you are very funny, you are very talented, you are catching a rhythm and a pattern, we're going to use that. So she was like, can I take a couple words out here and there? But honestly, like, and I said this to Nick the other day, surprisingly, even though it feels this way in the documentary style of it, it feels ad-libbed. It feels very improvised with all these people who have that talent. If you look at the script the shooting script side by side with the actual film, it is surprisingly close to being word perfect. Obviously, some verbs here and there and some adjectives, but like it's pretty close, where even one thing that did come up that was improvised, like, so the hardest scene to edit, I think, was the Timmy and I scene, when he does the three, like, what are you going to tell Lee Harvey Oswald not to shoot the president? What are you going to tell Hitler not to invade Poland? What do Timmy's inflection and performance in that was different each time, and some of the physicality of what he would do. He gave us like like a small, medium, and large performance, but it was still the same words in that scene, because he would change his energy a little bit to just being like, hey, in editing, I'm not giving you an alt take of an improv of a joke, but I'm giving you an alt take of like, based on how this rhythm, and because the syncopacity of like, and Timmy's a music guy too, which we use in the movie. Jerry is a much better musician and singer than Bobby is, but he doesn't want the spotlight, and he knows his friend does, so he's just like, oh, Bobby, you're so great. Timmy, better singer, better musician, like better lover, better man, better father, like he's really good. But Timmy came to us before the shoot, like his first day there. I think literally his first day there, when we are getting in costume, and we were going to do like a run through for blocking and camera and just everything. Timmy came to, I think, you and I, and was just like, I have this idea that Jerry has a banana that he's constantly trying to open in the movie. And he's like, is this something I can do? And we said, well, like, what's the reason? And he's like, well, this scene, this scene, this, and he's like, he can't open, he can't open, he can't open it. And finally, he gets to the end, he can't open it, and like, he gave us the arc of the banana, and we were just like, yeah, like 100%. It emotionally like connects. It's fantastic. To then flash forward to Eileen. Eventually, we had to tell her because her first scenes with Timmy when he had filmed 3 days after we had started and he joined us, he's sitting on that counter with a banana, and Eileen's just like, "Oh, game sees game. You gonna fuck with a banana the whole time in my takes?" Like, okay. And then she's like, "What's up with the banana?" And we told her the story. She's like, "That's a pretty good story." Then we get to the second to last day of filming where I'm not going to spoil the ending, but Eileen is just like, "What if I did this with the banana?" And I was just like, "Yes." Absolutely. So none of that is in the script. None of those weird, like little minutia unspoken things. But those are the things that us knowing that we're working with very smart and funny people, we're just like, please tell us your ideas. Like, and if it serves the biggest picture or the picture that we can see right now, which again, that picture changes then when you get into editing, it's just like, so Nick being able to do all those things that we talked about and film the tone of the movie that we knew we had or wanted. When you looked at the footage, Nick, you're just like, I can't make fucking heads or tails of this. And then I took the footage on my phone on Splice app, some like dialed down like 360p or whatever like footage, and I edited together a first rough cut while in the hospital while my twins were being born. I'm not saying this as a slight against Nick. I'm just saying that's how good technology is nowadays that I could do that because there's a lot of sitting around.
Mhm.
And I sent it back to you, and I remember you just being like, "Yeah, that's it." Like you're like, "That's the like yes." I just you're like, "I filmed it. I knew it then." But like looking
Mhm.
at this, it's just like, "What the fuck is this? We got a banana story. We got like tongues being pulled out. Like we had people get like cheerleaders getting their boobs cut off. Like this is this movie's bonkers."
Well, there's one little tiny small thing that Eileen does, and I don't know if it was ad libbed or not. And for some reason, it sticks out to me. But when he or you say something about
No, I try to talk about Bobby as Bobby, like being like, so he is, and if we continue with this trilogy, the King should have Turd Mountain trilogy, where Matt Wilby is not the same delusional as Bobby,
how,
but very similar. Like there's a very similar, like even Laddie, who's vastly different than Sarah in the first movie, there
hmm
is this almost like bizarro quality where she still is the cheerleader for this lead guy.
hmm
And she is right, like Laddie especially, she's in this like feministic, like let's burn some bras and let's take over, but locationally where we leave it ambiguous like where she is. Like so even if it's like 78, is she on like the real late end of that? And she's just like, I can't deal with fucking stupid men anymore. But so sorry, yes.
but no, I was just saying
Continue the thing that
that
Laddie does.
because he talks about when your character says, if you care for me so much, you've never even held my hand,
Hmm.
and she just puts her hand on your hand and goes 1001, 1002, 1000. Something about that, it was like a trigger for me. I was like, boom. And she just stood out at that moment. And I was like, okay, this girl is really, really good because it was such a small little thing. And yet she played it so well. And I'm like, wow. And then there was the next scene where you go into the back room. But I was just like, because I remember seeing the first one and I thought she stood out in that film too. And I thought the same thing. I'm like, oh, well,
Yeah.
that's too bad. She's gone. It's like, all right, well,
Well,
and then
time
when
to
she
turn
was,
off the movie.
yeah, like, okay. And then she was in the second one. I'm like, oh, it's the same woman now. Okay, good, good. Hopefully she survives longer in this one.
I
And it just, and she was just, her presence was just so dynamic. And I'm like, okay, the two of you are definitely either ad-libbing or have such a good relationship that it feels like you're ad-libbing because it's the little things like that that instead of like okay then you put your hand on his hand and then you wait a couple seconds but the fact that she was
It's literally scripted that way.
real
Like I know, like but that is if I so I purposely wrote, I did not want to, so I was not going to be the lead in Open House. I wasn't going to be in the movie at all. Don't know, even know what I would have done, but Heinz is always just like, well, you'll play something. You'll be one scene, but you'll be able to focus and be behind the camera and like really direct. Because I think he knows that's something that like, I'm critical of myself every time I see something in Sweet Meats. I'm just like, fuck, like if there'd been more shot listing or blah, 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 if I'd have been that, whatever. That's me criticizing myself. The acting part of it, I look better because of everyone that I'm around. Um, I purposely wrote Sweetmeats when Open House couldn't be. I was like, okay, a way to make the budget smaller is I will star in it again. So we have to look at this the same way we did All Your Friends Are Dead. So you have an actor, me, who can do a lot of different things that are just by myself, even though it doesn't seem that way in the movie. Like the scene of Bobby playing I Got Dreams in the basement in his underwear, which it's revealed in his underwear, his ballad, his dream ballad of like remembering the good times, but it's only the things we just saw in the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Right.
Nick Hines joke. It's fucking amazing. He's like, what if he only remembers backwards rewind? Like if you're rewinding the movie, the shit that we just saw. He doesn't have like we don't fabricate other good times or memories or whatever. And I'm just like, yeah. I was like, that's fucking hilarious. And again, whether it plays to an audience, whether our audience gets it or digs it, like who knows? But like it works in the conventions of somebody that we're big fans of, Michael Showalter and David Wayne, who did stuff like Wet Hot American Summer. And I just watched They Came Together, which I sent over to Heinz with the quickness after watching it. Because I was like, man, this is the shit we want to do. Like, this is the vibe. It's not Airplane, but yeah, it's almost them doing their best version of those kind of movies.
Mhm.
But so the hand thing, with Eileen being a comedian, she reads that and gets the nuances and uses her whole instrument. So I didn't write a lot of dialogue for myself. So Eileen does a lot of heavy lifting in the movie. Timmy does a lot of the heart lifting in the movie. I do singing. You hear Bobby a lot, but like dialogue wise, I don't talk that much. So Nick, like what do you think as far as like, do you think there was ad-libbing or it was like giving us a lot of different versions to be like, what do you want this weird? You want this big? Or you want like,
Well, so, with All Your Friends, we had what, six principal people and then a
yeah,
few extras kind of come and go. But a lot of time it was just me and Ricky running around with the camera. So it was really just old, like it felt like back in the high school, post high school, we were running around filming a sketch comedy show, just a few of us.
zero permits.
We can say that now. Is statute of limitations over? Maybe. The but we really got that similar vibe with Sweetmeats, even though probably there was around a dozen people hovering on set and just kind of in the background. We had our location, the restaurant, we end up just I gotta shout this out a million times, but like the restaurant right next door is like their catering event center. And so it was unused during our shoot. So we were able to like, there's like a dozen big giant round tables. So everybody was able to like, here was like the makeup station. Eileen had a table, like here's craft services. And like, so we were able to like take over this giant space and it really like helped our production. But at the same time, I think like we got that feel like it's just like a whole bunch of kids just playing in this
It
closed
was a big
restaurant at
tree
night.
house. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a big tree house because like everybody next door, because like Timmy, that was a legit 70s keyboard that we got because I also wanted that kind of sound. So David Kornfeld, who arranged a lot of the music, plays on a lot of the instruments and did the score. He got samples from that keyboard and incorporated it in the score that you hear. Because Timmy, so again, kind of like summer camp vibe. Because yeah, for 8 days. we shot. Timmy, so it is that like weird like summer camp, like some kids come late or whatever. Timmy came late, but then like fit in, and because we're shooting probably 10-hour days, 20 pages a day, like something unheard of and dumb that nobody's making money on. Like everybody's getting paid, but nobody's getting paid, a proper minimum wage. But Timmy would be there like playing the keyboard, doing like sing-alongs, like in the banquet room next door while we're like, it was quiet enough, but it was like mirrored the same size uh on the other side and was open for us. Nick Vitus, who ran the restaurant, he plays in a band, so he's the bass player in the dream sequences and the music videos at the Darkness Lounge. He's the bass player playing in the back, and he got all those other guys. They don't play on the movie, but they are so good and so tight that we played the playback track twice, and they're like, "Yeah, we know how to play this," and just like went to town. We just got so lucky with the different connections that we had that I think it feels ad-libbed because everybody knows the same world they're in, and it doesn't. And like I'm saying, everybody else is acting because I don't act that much in the movie. I stutter a few times and then lip sync to songs, but but Eileen and Timmy and Andrew, they just all got like what it was, and then we talk about it and we'd run through it once, and they're just like each scene is almost like a sketch on its own. There is a rhythm to the jokes that I think are presented within each scene. Like if you break it down, even so much so the SNL influence of we then cut away to a standalone front stage, which is the Darkness Lounge, something that we're familiar with. And the one thing that I think we did well, from my point of view, is there's an evolution to the songs and the content of the songs too. That then, as the country album plays out and comes to a fade on side B, well, so does the narrative that has been throughout the first, 11 songs.
Mhm.
One of the things that really shocked me with this was when you and Eileen did your song, "The Devil is a Woman." I did not expect that voice to come out of her. Oh my God, I literally.
So here's where we messed up. We don't have a plan to do another musical, but it turns out we should have had Eileen on more tracks. So we messed up. We did Eileen another disservice.
Shame on you. How much blood do you think you guys went through on this movie?
Oh, how much did we do for that first meat grinder scene where I don't want to give any spoilers, but I just thinking,
that was all on me. That's another inside joke. Like, so if you watch All Your Friends Are Dead, the person who gets shot with the most blood, because I'm like, look, I'm not going to ask anybody else to do this except for Nick Greystone, who did it at the end and almost lost an eye during his music video when he gets blasted in the face. Mike Flincham, who surprisingly was running the same PSI canister. I was wearing glasses. One of the reasons was obviously the makeover transition with like, he no longer has glasses and he's beautiful. And he doesn't have a homeless beard. Like, what a gem. like, but so one of the reasons for the glasses was as the writer, and I'm like, well, this is part of his character because I'm also going to have this scene where I'm also going to get covered in the most blood again. Like All Your Friends Are Dead. I'm not going to make somebody else be subjected to that gross, sticky, like people are. But then the joke became that laddie, like as Eileen, the shirt she's wearing is like Spirit of 78 or whatever. That both of her parents are passed now, and that was like her mom's shirt. She's like, I'd love to wear it for the movie, but it would technically be in the scene. I could take it off or blah blah blah, and she's just like, I don't want to get blood on it. I was like, okay, well, your character also doesn't want to get blood on her. Like wants everybody else to do her bidding. You just stand behind me, and I'm just gonna get blasted. Mike, glasses just to cover that blast in the face, somehow was able to angle the hose to just go under the glasses, just like popping me in the eye, and I'm like, we did one take, right, Nick? We didn't reset. Yeah, one take. And like
You
it's
just gotta sit there and take
insane.
it.
You just have to take it. And even though I know it's him, that I just want to be like, lower the vat, like quit shooting me in the eye if I go blind for this. But also, I like going back and editing that, talking about like referring to myself as Bobby. I don't even think about it. I think it being somebody else because after the fact, like once you're in the editing stage, I don't even recognize like that person or whatever, especially like All Your Friends Are Dead, where I lost 140 pounds. But like Bobby in that scene, that was my favorite thing to shoot because I was like, I'm going to spend the most time colorizing this scene and like making this look as epic as I wanted it to. And with the yellow and again, that one box light that we then repurposed to shoot upwards, Nick, didn't you say no to the plexiglass in front because it looked a little warped for the
I think
camera?
so. Yeah. Yeah.
And so like we said when we shot All Your Friends Are Dead, he filmed super tight on the hedge trimmer on the dude's stomach that the camera got covered in blood and like there were a couple lenses that you're like these will never work right again. And so for this movie we're like we're going to do a plexiglass because we watched some YouTube thing that was just like that's how you do it. That's how you protect your camera. And you look through it. I remember you're just like, this doesn't look right. Lose the plexiglass. I was like, are you sure? Are you like, we can't like, you could go way back or whatever. And he's just like, nope. He's like, this looks great. And so like, there's that. There is the Vertigo Andrew, who's Nick, who's the dad. This like going backwards. Like we didn't practice that. We should. I mean, but like it's just like me just being like, and you're like, you were like on the first day of filming, you're like, also not to mention, Nick bought a new house right before we started filming. And what happened the first day of filming? I don't think we've talked about this anywhere else.
No, I don't think we have. Thanks for bringing it
Is
up.
it? Sorry. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
okay.
The like the day before we're going to start filming, we found out this new house that we purchased. There was a plumbing issue with the shower and it was leaking, and so yeah, I came down the next morning to just water all over my kitchen and my basement,
Oh
and then like had
man.
to roll from that into
First day.
8 days of filming Sweetmeats. So I was
Oh,
maybe not in the best of moods that week, maybe
oh,
just maybe.
I can imagine. Plus,
You're
you're not
like,
going to be getting
Mike,
any
shoot him
sleep.
in the eye. You're like, shoot him in the eye, Mike.
Actually, I
This is
took
how I
the
get
hose
mine.
from Mike and I just got in there and
You
Yeah.
bastard, you timed it like this on purpose.
yeah.
Wow. Well, speaking because you mentioned losing weight, you had a stand-up special called Dad Bod. What is harder, a 22-minute stand-up special or producing an entire movie? Which
Oh
one is
man,
more difficult?
I can ramble. I mean, it's better if people are laughing. But like Nick Hines would be the first person to tell you, just like I am not at a loss for words, or could not come up with an idea or spend some yarn to just see if like there's anything there, just have fun to like ping pong off of. Nick and I, our production meetings are going and taking like 3 hour long ass walk up like Rocky level steps. In Cincinnati. So we'll play games like hypothetical of like, okay, say you were presented with an Evil Dead sequel, what would you do? And like that's a game. We're like, all right, this is what I pitch. Blah 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 blah. Stand up. This just past weekend, I did a show in Leesburg, Indiana, at a winery, and I did an hour and 6 minutes of stand up,
Oh, okay.
and it was going well. It was their St. Patrick's Day show. It was an early show, so like the
Mhm.
people that wanted to be there definitely wanted to be there at 6 p.m. and it went well, pretty much from beginning to end. I got paid to do it. That's nothing, man. Like, oh, that's such a cool picture. Seeing sorry, I'm just seeing your background with the monitor. I know we have that picture, but I don't go through like all of them. That's a great production still that I'm sure was taken by Chris Morris, one of our producers. But no, I have 2 albums out. I'm working on my third album and my next special as we speak. And so that's why I kind of do some longer sets. But I don't love stand up. Like it's funny because like to me, I think that comes easier, or I don't I'm not as precious about it. And I'm not precious with film ideas, but we know when we have something, that's when we're like, because Nick wasn't ready to come on board from open house to sweetmeats. You just did not. You were just like, it's too quick. It's too quick, baby. I've been hurt. Like I can't feel the scars again. I don't need some time. Girl got to be by herself for a little bit. Um, but and then even with the house issues and stuff, like where it feels like you're going through your own Dante's Inferno of like, like okay, maybe I shouldn't be making this movie because the universe is kind of telling me like I shouldn't. Like you even got you got it to a degree of like the humor, and you saw the talent level where you're just like, yeah, this is what we'll do. So like when anybody asks us like what we're gonna do next, it's just like it really depends on how we think we can execute what we're doing in a certain amount of budget that we can do it.
Mhm.
If that, sorry, if that answer, I don't know if that fully answered your
In,
question, but
in a way, I was just thinking, like, which, because when you do a stand-up special, you're live, you've got the crowd there. I don't know if you get more than one opportunity to shoot it, if you shoot it over a few different days and then you edit it into one, or a movie where you can, it it takes a lot longer to put all the elements together from, the day you start writing it to the day, you cast it, you shoot it, and you finally get it released. Um,
because of my stand-up, that is definitely a benefit for my stand-up and my sketch background, and also the technological day that we live in. I do. Again, I don't stand up is not my favorite creative expression in comedy or artistically. It has become a feature length film like that. It fascinates me of like what we can do, what we can get better on, the stories we have to tell, and then is gross as it sounds is like the fulfillment of seeing anybody or hearing anybody comment or have an opinion on the thing that you made, and they're like you said, like got better and you laughed more and more and more. I'm just like, that's amazing. Like it blows my mind. Like stand up makes a little bit more sense. You go to a place, people come see you, like make me laugh, whatever. But like someone who I don't know, like at all, has not been marketed to. It's just like, hey, we made this thing. It's weird. It's this. There's no other like user reviews to be like, hey man, don't waste time on that thing. Like it sucks. You're like, I'm gonna watch it because I like new independent artists, whether or not a majority of them aren't worth your time, or it's like there's a nugget of an idea or something. The fact that y'all watched it, seemed like you dug it, is great. I
and
think
we
that's
are
what
brutally honest,
I did
by the way. We
in
are
the review.
brutally honest.
Look, man, I've been in your shoes where it was the director of Phantasm 5, David Hartman, who I'm a big fan of Phantasm. We booked him on an old podcast we used to do called Cinema Toast Crunchcast before we watched the movie because we're like, I'm sure we'll love it. And then we watched it. We're like, fuck. I was like, how do we, our own
Yeah.
integrity of having 30 listeners, like, how do we not tell them the truth?
Yeah.
And so like everything like that was the most scripted. Like Mike and I, Mike Flincham of Sweetmeats and All Your Friends Are Dead, uh, we were like, okay, these are the questions we ask that keep us away from telling our criticisms. Like we talk about this, we like this. These are the 10 things. If he changes the subject, we come back to these questions because then we don't have to lie.
Because
We
John and I
did
have both
not
have done
go.
some. Oh no, go ahead.
We did not go to that extent, but before we watched the movie, we knew we were doing the movie. We knew we were interviewing you guys. We are like, okay, if we don't like the movie, let's just be real vague about everything and hope to Christ they don't say, what'd you think?
The line,
And
look,
honestly,
it's like
when
the
I
mom, it's
seen,
the mom and dad of like the high school kid who does a play, and they're just like, "Wow, you guys really did it!
Yeah,
You
we
did
were
it for
gonna.
you did it for like almost 2 hours." Oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
well, but we were gonna at one point. We're like, we'll just talk to the guys, and we won't really talk about what we thought. And if it's good, maybe we'll do the review show separate. And then we ended up doing the review show separate because it's like it was that good. We're like, okay, no, there's nothing to worry about. We're doing fine. And the reason we were extra worried is both of us have spent significant amount of money on crowd-funded movies. I've appeared in a few, and I'm not going to say the title, but one of them is the worst goddamn movie I've ever seen in my entire life. It's not even a movie. It's half a movie. I
How
can't get
can you
into it.
not say? Because where is it? Is it? So I'm not going to try to make you say what it is, but like if it's something that people could watch right now, that would boon us because they would watch that and they'd be like, "Oh, I didn't like Sweetmeats, but yeah, he was right. This thing's not like. I
Yeah,
guess
yeah,
there are
yeah, yeah,
levels
yeah, yeah.
of."
If you want to see a bad movie, I can point you into the
It's
direction
like,
of
look,
that.
anybody who says like Plan 9 from Outer Space is the worst movie of all time, it's like, bitch, please. It's not even Ed Wood's worst movie. Like, there are bad, like, it might be the most notable bad movie, like, with like a lot of scotch tape, like, in errors and shit. But, like, yeah, so you don't want to say your movie that could get it views. It must be that bad.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, no, no, yeah. My and he'll vouch for it because he was talking. He messaged me immediately. He says, "Oh my God." Fortunately, not all of the stuff we've done has been bad. Some of them have been pretty good, but yours. That's why we were so impressed, and we're like, "This can't be crowdfunded." Because it doesn't have the crowd funded elements that people fall into, like the ridiculous long list of photos or
Hmm.
people being cast in roles that they should not be cast in. And it just gets to the point where you're like, okay, enough's enough.
Yeah.
And Yours didn't have any of that. It was a very well crafted, very well edited, from beginning to end film. And we're like, okay, either they got so lucky and got all the right people to pay for to be in this thing,
Yeah.
which is apparently what happened, or and you did it the right way. And some of these we've been in a couple. I'm like, okay, yes, this is a good way to get people in it without jeopardizing because you don't know if any of these people can act or not. Um,
Oh yeah,
the
Tatum Greenway, who her parents, she's a big horror fan. She's the one who gets her back with the apple peeler. In the
Oh
one
yeah, yeah,
scene
yeah,
during
yeah,
that
yeah.
scene, her parents, she's like she's we would love she wants to be in a horror movie, like we're surprising her with this, and she came in, was awesome, and I think because of us and like she did a great job of acting like people had her in the back room of this basement, like getting her back apple sliced or whatever. And Nick, that's one of my favorite shots of the movie too. Is actually that sequence. The way Nick used the lighting from that. It was just a room off from where everybody was in the theater seats with their arm restraints. It was just a side room that you kind of see behind chicken wire. The way you film that, it looks beautiful. But anyway, she was one of those people who paid to get killed. Her parents did it, and because of that, she is like auditioned, and I think has now been an actual actor with lines from other things. Because she said she emailed, she was just like, "Thank you." She's like, because I had a film credit and it was a trauma film, like they took me more serious, and I was just like, "That's amazing."
There you go.
And
There you
that's so
go.
one of the things we were able to do since like we were just all so familiar with each other, like Eileen, Timmy, and Ricky, like we were able to move so fast when it came to those scenes where we did have the few people that paid. We really took it seriously because like without them, and it's I mean, you guys know you've been in, done some stuff and supported crowdfunding. Is like, well, we wouldn't have been able to make this movie without you. So like that was just some of the times like where we would generally like get the like clear the set, like as in like let's just get rid of all the noise, and then we could really work with these people. So we'd spend an hour or two, depending on how elaborate the kill or what we were trying to get done. So we just make sure they're comfortable and just take our time with that because we know we can make it up. We can make our days and everything that we needed to. When we get Eileen in front of the camera because she just so good. So.
And she did a fantastic job of making everybody who came in from out of town, who don't have any theater experience, don't understand, like, all right, turn this way, say this again, say this, say it, blah, blah, blah. Like basic directing. She would always butter them up beforehand, like in the either the banquet room or at the upstairs of Bobby Mackey's. She would be like, "Oh, and you are like, and you're here. Oh my gosh, like, let me show you around and this and this." And like we've done this and this and like it's really cool. Thank you so much for being like part like she just gave them the confidence. So I think like some of the things that you're saying they didn't appear that way on screen is because people like Chris Morris, Mike Flincham, Trace Walker, and Eileen and our makeup staff, Sophie Ferris, Liz Shrebus, and her dad, Steve Shrebus. Everybody was just so our makeup team does the USS Nightmare in Cincinnati or on the river in northern Kentucky near Cincinnati. And so they are so used to working with younger people who work at this haunt. They are so accepting. Everyone, it did feel like that little bit of a week and a half of camp where people pass through. They're like special guest stars and like, hey, it's this person, and like, hey, and they came and did their thing and whatever. Um, like even so much so that weird little things that like came together. Um, Courtney and Stephanie, who did this podcast, They're Terrified, They're Tipsy, where they would watch independent horror shorts and stuff. They supported All Your Friends Are Dead and they supported Sweetmeats. And I was just on a podcast with them. Unfortunately, the podcast doesn't exist anymore. But I came on, I was just like, well, we're doing this movie. We have some ideas of some like kind of these characters that come in and get killed, introduced one scene later on, killed later in the movie. We're like, you guys would be great for that. Like, I think you guys would be hilarious. And they're the two women that come in holding hands. And Eileen says what's the line that you like, Nick?
Oh, oh, I had it on the tip of my tongue.
We'll have to kill you.
Kindness, kill you with kindness.
Yeah, we'll have to kill you. Penter paws with kindness. I always forget that part. And then they filmed 2 days. They filmed at the restaurant and then they filmed at the next day. So they each came in at that time. They were both living in Florida. They came up, did like a trip in Cincinnati, asked, for different locales and stuff. They're both moms, so they had like a girls' weekend together, had a great time, and then did 2 days filming this movie. And the best thing the thing that we always strived for, where we're just like, all right, we want you to feel like All Your Friends Are Dead, the podcast duo during the credits scene that was a real podcast husband and wife who contributed and came down. We're just like, we want you guys to feel like you're having the best time because you're here because we all have this weird like video store vibe that we carry around us where we're just like, have you heard of this? Have you seen this? Wasn't that cool to watch when you were like in middle school or whatever? Like we all kind of have that vibe. So if it comes off on screen, the thing I can say is that we surround ourselves with people that make it comfortable. And that's a reason why there's not nudity in the movie, because ultimately at the end of the day, we had three beautiful women who were the cheerleaders. One was a Playboy playmate. One, has OnlyFans, and the other works as an exotic dancer. And they're happy to say that because that's how they make their coin. And they would have done a nude scene. When it came to like lopping off their breasts, we're just like, does it matter that we're like, hey, yeah, like we live in a day and age. If you want to look at porn, you pull out your phone and you type in a website. Like you don't have to rent the movie.
I got it in 3 seconds, literally. Yeah.
Yeah, like so it just like and that like those are conversations that Nick and I have, and it's not on a moral superior high ground, but like those crowdfunding movies you talk about, something that I've railed on, which I don't mean to be as vehement or degrading as I may come off as or superior, but it's like they market their crowdfunding on, hey, you see this girl? You see this girl? You see this girl? You're probably going to see their tits in the movie. And it's like, fine, if those girls are treated well and there's respect and they're paid and whatever, and that's the deal they make, that is great. That's on them. All for it. But I think when it came to us and you guys saying not feeling crowdfunded, us coming 100% from crowdfunding and it doing way better for us to be able to do this kind of movie we were just like, all right, we're not going to do that, but are you all cool who want to support crowdfunding movies by it not necessarily like I hope you're cool that it's I hope you don't feel like it's a bait and switch because we did sell it as
Yeah.
like a as a horny like 70s movie, but that was more to get a point the satirical nature of like we're going to be aware that we're making this a comedy this time. It's not going to be
Yeah.
a horror movie with meta or comedic elements. Like from beginning to end, this is a dark comedy.
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we are getting close to wrap up time here. I know there's a couple kind of off the wall, goofy questions that Kyle has as well as myself. I'm going to go ahead and start. You made this movie, it's a horror comedy musical. What is your favorite horror, your favorite comedy, and your favorite musical?
Ricky, you got to go first.
Favorite horror is A Nightmare on Elm Street. Favorite musical, gosh, if I have to be honest, for re-listenability, I would say Rent. And favorite comedy, gosh, that's where it gets tricky because so many comedies do not age well. I'm gonna say my favorite all-time comedy is Young Frankenstein.
Oh,
Amen.
very good. Very good.
So
Because it's
I
not
could,
only like it's very much like the Universal Frankenstein movie, it's shot that way, but it's also a parody film. Like that answer could change if I thought about it in different ways, but like that's one that I would happily defend in like a top 10.
Yeah. And that was what I wanted to play again since the passing of Gene Hackman, because his scene in that
Yes.
is classic.
So
So
fucking
classic.
funny. I'm
so I
curious to hear
definitely
what
don't
your
have
favorite
a
musical is, Nick.
Oh, I was gonna. That was my cop out. I don't. There's
Oh
definitely. I'm
yeah.
not definitely not gonna have
Tenacious
favorite
D
It's
and the
musical.
Pick
Sweet
of Destiny.
Meats.
Yeah, Sweet
Wait, no,
Meats
no, no. Clerks 2. There's a musical. They do a musical number in
number.
Clerks 2. So that'll be my shout out for that one. No comedy. I was just trying to think. I think Ricky mentioned they came together, which had elements of Naked Gun. And I go back, I love Naked Gun. I love just the foreground, the background, just the depth of layers of all the jokes that are constantly going on without Leslie Nielsen like playing the straight man, like and how funny he is. Like there's just so much depth of I love that movie. Horror, I was a Michael Myers guy growing up. That was like I feel like we were a Halloween family. I feel like some people were like Jason. I feel like some people were Freddy Krueger. We were a Michael Myers family growing up. But whew, that's tough. I mean, I had to go The Thing, maybe like my all-time
Oh,
favorite horror.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
yeah. So, very aspirational on those filmmakers. I hope one day we have the opportunity to like get in the ballpark or at least in the same league.
But
And
man,
I don't mean like the
you're
ace
talking
of
Carpenter. Like you're talking the Thing and OG Halloween.
yeah.
You, me, and my dad went and saw a retro screening of Assault on Precinct 13. And
nice.
that movie, so we saw two retro screenings at the same theater where we're having our premiere for Sweetmeats on Saturday. Um, we saw Assault on Precinct 13, and that movie played like a modern indie like action movie like that you would see come out that people would be buzzing about. The other one we saw, I never got this movie the same way at home that I did in the theater was From Dusk Till Dawn. Holy shit, talk about background stuff. There's always something going on in that movie that I think, again, just to give it to Rodriguez, that just he is always like, ah, man, I'm gonna do so much shit, I can't lose your attention. Like I know this medium is like people get bored or whatever with whatever story we're telling. I'm always gonna have something interesting with Cheech Marin, or it's him always like lighting his cigar before he talks, or in each frame Fred Williamson's in, he's lighting his cigar and the cigar never gets smaller. It's the same bit. Like there's shit like that I'm like, this has got to be mapped out. I think that's the same way as you saying to us about ad lib. I think when there are certain things like that, sometimes you come up with it through improvisation, like the Adam McKay, Will Ferrell thing or whatever, or Judd Apatow. But I think sometimes people like Rodriguez and stuff, those are the things that actually got them excited about the scene, and then they built the scene around. They're just like,
Yeah.
all right, what if
Yeah.
Fred Williamson is just like, it's this, this, and this? And he's like, oh, well, you know what you do is then you incorporate him telling his Vietnam PTSD flashback. And they're just like, yes. And now we have this thing that we lay because we need to make 90 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. My question is a two-parter. First of all, since you mentioned the thing is a remake in
Yep.
itself. What movie would you remake if you had the opportunity? And what movie would you be absolutely pissed off if somebody remade it?
Well, here's the thing about remakes, and I'm definitely not the first one to, come up with this. It's like, well, you don't like, there's no point of remaking a good movie, right? So you want to find something that maybe like that has a really good story or really, something like that, where like maybe it just didn't hit it. Maybe it's one of the low budget films. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I'd go back and I'd remake All Your Friends Are Dead, and I would throw money at the audio this time. And when we started filming,
Oh, we wouldn't
we
give it to the audio person. We just throw it at him.
when we started filming that, we didn't even know what the ending was going to be. We didn't know who the killer, if it was going to be a real killer or just,
No, the
if it was
cast
going to be,
legit asked. They're like, is this a fuck? What's the most recent, the Chuck Palahniuk Fight Club? Like, is this a Fight Club situation? And we're like, yeah, that's one of the possibilities we're looking at. So it was a real like scream at the end where we were just like, then when we filmed the stuff with the hallucinations of the killer being separate and blah 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 and all that, we were just like different people, some of them didn't know until the premiere when they saw the movie. They're just like, oh, so you went that route. It was, yeah, it's all, yeah, we're like, yeah, that's how we went. And like, I don't know if that helped or made it worse.
So I think
So
I have an
yeah,
answer
besides All Your
for
Friends Are Dead, you would remake
Yeah.
All Your Friends Are Dead.
what. So what I think, what I don't know if this will ever happen. This just seems insane if it would, but anything Tarantino, like
Oh,
if he
wow.
comes out with another film and a decade or 15, 20 years down the line, so, somebody's going to look at Pulp Fiction, if they're even as movies, then it'll just probably just be AI. You just type in like new Pulp Fiction with whoever the person is who's a celebrity nowadays, and it'll generate it for you. But that would be insanity, for anything. Even though I love the world of Kill Bill, like I would love for more Kill Bill. I just don't know if anybody should go near that. You know. So,
Makes sense.
Ricky,
So
what do you got?
so what would you remake though?
What would I really
So what
truly?
would you, so if you're going off that, like, so Tarantino you think is the spectrum of just like, why would you? Like, there's no reason. This is dumb. Like, Jackie Brown's Rum Punch, so he's already kind of adapted that, so there's no reason to adapt his stuff or sequelize anything beyond in the world. But what, using that methodology of you
Yeah,
don't
and it
think the
doesn't have to
original,
be
so
it
I
doesn't
think
have
it's
to be a
interesting
bad
that,
movie you want to make good. It could be just a
right,
movie
but
that
I
you
think
have a
it's,
different take on, and you're like, you know what, I
I
love
think
this
it's
movie, but if you'd
interesting,
done it this way.
Nick, that you mentioned Tarantino because he does that thing where he borrows because he's seen so much of the bad stuff of like 70s. Like they weren't good movies, but he has watched so much that he found nuggets of moments of cinematography, of acting, of dialogue, or of a gag, of a kill or action or whatever. And then he reappropriated it in a better story. So he kind of did that thing of like, has taken stuff that doesn't have a lot of eyes on it or is considered that good on a whole, and then just was like, well, let me take. I have a good enough eye to be like, this is a good thing from here. This is. But is there a movie that?
It would, man. I would have to say what would be fun. I think would be super fun is El Mariachi.
Mhm.
And it's probably more. And I'm thinking, and and I'm gonna just so back away from this where it's not necessarily that, but also I love the idea of the good, the bad, the ugly. I just westerns. This is me strongly hinting towards Glore. I think we should try an action, even though we're not ready for it. But I would love to be
So
able to
many
play
things
in that
so many things
sandbox.
that we're not ready for. But I know what I know what you're saying because I was gonna say, what's the Jean-Claude Van Damme? Is it not double team? Not fuck.
Is
Where
it
he's
the
his own twin
twins
brother.
or
Yeah, it's his twin brother. Yeah, not the Rodman. But
oh
like I'm just piggybacking. My answer would be is like, yeah, if someone came to me and was like in the horror genre, like they go to Flanagan for Elm Street, that dude should probably do it. I think he would love to because his work is definitely influenced by like Elm Street 3 and just that whole world. But like to me, I don't want to like I have ideas, but I don't want to helm that because I would be too judgmental myself. To not say that like Don Coscarelli didn't do amazing with Phantasm, but since he's handed over to someone else for number 5, and there's ideas in it that I like, it just budget and restraints and whatever, and it wasn't Coscarelli. It's judged harder, and I judge 4, Phantasm Oblivion as well. But if someone came to me and was like, "What would you do for a Phantasm series?" I'm like, "Man, Coscarelli was already into Something Wicked This Way Comes. I go back to Bradbury in that novel, and I make it a Netflix original series where it's just like an 8-part episode thing, almost like a Stranger Things. But you got the brothers, you got the small town, you got the death, you have post Vietnam. There's so much fucking concept in that I feel like with the characters and then the movies end up becoming a road picture. If you did that in a mini series, I'm like, if you had some Race with the Devil shit in there, like you could have so many different things because Phantasm is a series, zombies, the diggers and the people like at the mortuary. There was already a world that was so expansive. There's science fiction elements that good Coscarelli also doesn't know because I asked him and he was just like, man, we just made those movies up as we went along. He's like, and based on the budget, we did with what we could with what we thought was cool. And I'm like, I dig that so much more now than when I was a kid and asked that question at a convention. Because as a kid, I was like, no, you had everything. Like, no, you're making it up as you go along. Like, and I was legit like hurt by that answer. But so Phantasm is what I would do. What I wouldn't remake, I don't think we need any more Elm Street, Jason, Texas Chainsaw, Saw movies. I think we need to have a decade where we do see some more like innovative things that like Scream was in the 90s or like Saw and Hostel were in the early 2000s or like even Rob Zombie was, even though not my cup of tea. But I think we need, and maybe we're getting that with A24 a little bit and Neon. But I get that the 80s horror icons, they're going to be the universal monsters of a closer, decade.
Mm-hmm. The
But
modern
yeah, I just do think we need to maybe put a rest to that for a little
yeah.
bit
And
because
then when they have tried to remake it, it hasn't worked. So
yeah,
I
Texas
mean,
Chainsaw I think has been the most lucrative and the biggest after the fact, but they also have within those first 3 movies like Phantasm, they had over a decade break in between the first movie and the sequel, and then got to be a little bit more evaluative of the current climate of when those sequels came out, I think in 88. But there's Texas Chainsaw has the most repeatability based on the blue collar disenfranchised and hillbilly and that fear and all that. There's a lot to play in that sandbox, and I think that's why it's still relevant every 5 years or so. The family aspect. There's just so much things bigger than like Jason Voorhees. Like, okay, we're gonna do a Halloween TV show. We're gonna do a Jason Crystal Lake on Peacock. Like, okay, you're gonna make the best version or television version of this thing. I don't know. It's hard because I mean, like, I'm inspired by a lot of things that I watch and stuff too. But I'm just like, okay, so take the things that you liked from that like kind of Carpenter did with The Thing from Another World. And then in The Thing, he's using the thematic nature and the narrative of McCarthyism and he's bringing it to The Thing during Reaganism. Like he is making this hugely political movie, which it's funny that the reason why it tanked is because politically the other Alien that movie that year did better and it was family friendly called E.T. And so people were like, wait, we wanted tickets to the Alien movie and they're like, with a spoiler, which one? Because I know
Yeah.
one movie's called The Thing, and unless you know the original, like it's about
Mhm.
aliens, and like, well, which one's the one that's cool for my kids and has Reese's Pieces? And then they're like, oh, well, like it's this one at McDonald's. Like, there you go. And
Mhm.
Carpenter's just like, I just spent the last year and a half of my life in the coldest, worst conditions. Like, I'm getting a divorce because of this, and like, and then his movie, and it, like the Botine, like all the special effects are mind blowing and still are scary to this day.
Yeah.
And luckily, it is appreciated now. But when you see Carpenter in interviews now, I get when he's just like, I like money. And he's like, I was a young hard artist. He's like, but I'm old now and I want to get high and play video games.
Well, thank you guys both. This has
Thank
been a terrific evening. I've enjoyed it immensely.
Absolutely. It's been a real pleasure talking with you both. You got the preview or the world premiere coming up on Saturday, the 22nd.
Yes.
Do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit more about that real quick? What we can expect?
Yeah, so it's part of Hands Cross to America. So yep, there it is. There's the hands, and they are across the to America. So it's part of it's a new fleet of trauma films that are coming out. And so check the nky.com. We keep it up to date with all our current events, the screenings. The first event is in Cincinnati on March 22nd. And then so that is the world premiere of Sweet Meats. So at 6:30, halfway through the marathon, if you'd like, you can get a $35 ticket for the whole event, or there's a $20 ticket where you can come and see the premiere of Sweet Meats. I know Lloyd Kaufman's going to be there. He's going to introduce the film. Him and Ricky will be doing some post Q&A. I'll be there. There's going to be stars. There's going to be people you see on the big screen there. It's going to be a super cool event. It's I really appreciate getting to come on shows like yours, and I'm really truly looking forward to like watching your guys' review after talking to you for the last hour and a half. Just because
And
it's
then
so cool.
finding where you live and beating the shit out of you because you played us.
Yeah.
But
And the
so,
movie's coming to our town. It's
Is
coming
it?
to San Antonio. So I don't know if you guys are going to be here or not, but
we're
you
not.
could beat the shit out of me.
But there are people who were involved with the movie. I mentioned the podcasting couple. They no longer do their podcast because they could do it in separate states, but they actually like the vibe of being together and blah blah blah. Her and her husband live in San Antonio, and so there's a
Oh,
couple
no
other
kidding.
people who were weirdly connected to the movie that are just like, "You guys gonna be in San Antonio?" I was like, "I would love to," but like just based on schedules, just all different things. But here, I want you guys to say to Nick. He just mentioned that he'll be there and there'll be a Q&A and he'll be around. Like he should be the other person that's on the microphone besides the cast if there's like cast specific questions.
Mhm.
Nick is an insightful motherfucker like and tells a different perspective and different energy than my like manic ass.
It always helps.
Exactly.
That's why there's
Absolutely.
two of us doing this and not just one. You need the extra person to get you over the hump.
Scott
Gotta
Mosier.
call him compadre.
Would you, hey Nick, sorry, yes, everybody come out, check out the nky.com for all updates. We had a news interview today. We're going to have one on Wednesday. We'll put all that stuff on YouTube and it'll be linked on the website. El Mariachi, would you set it in a different culturally, like, regional location? Would you change or would it be in a Mexican city?
No, we Kevin Smithify it and it'd go Canadian.
Oh, and it's a fucking hockey case. And it's just like, yeah. And it's whatever the Canadian words are for like high. It's called high stick.
I stick, eh?
High stick, eh? High stick, eh? He goes into a hoser bar and stuff, and like he goes in there and like he has his stick, but one guy he trades his case, eh? And like he don't know that guy's got like artillery in there, you know.
Hey guys, I need you to cut this because we're using it.
It's Moose Jaws. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and
I gotta,
exploding pucks, eh?
I gotta ask, with what you just said, Ricky, did you watch SCTV?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I thought I heard some Mackenzie brothers in there.
Oh, yeah, Bob and Doug, yeah. Yeah, I'm a big fan of weird Canadian television. Growing up watching a lot of PBS too, but Hyance was one of them that had an interest in different comedies that I was unaware of. Like he was big into Monty Python, where my dad wasn't. Where I knew John Cleese, I knew Eric Idle, I knew different stuff like Faulty Towers and Are You Being Served, things that I had watched growing up. But I wasn't as into like Monty Python, or Nick had watched like The State and knew like Wet Hot American Summer and like knew more of that stuff that guys like that were doing. And so when we came together, um, we both, it was had, I feel like some pieces missing. So like I said, more recently the Jean-Claude Van Damme. And I was just like, so we should watch Steven Seagal too. And he was like, I'm gonna tell you, you've already watched Van Damme. Seagal's gonna be a big letdown. And we watched Under Siege and like his weird like spaghetti noodle arms and like that tank top. And I'm just like, and he's barely like moving. And this is his first big movie. And I was just like, what is this? And he's like, I know, right? He's like, what a letdown from Jean Claude, who's like doing like nut teabag and like on a countertop. And he plays two of the main characters.
Yeah.
It has the most amount of dialogue.
I would like to ask if you make the San Antonio screening, that maybe we come back on and we can, you don't have to keep, if Ricky's not on, or we shut him up or cut his mic, we won't go 2 hours, but
Well,
just
because
kind
we'll
of
have
get you
had
guys'
screenings.
experience.
Yeah, we'll have had some screenings too by that time. We'll have had the premiere. We'll have had a general kind of like check the oil, the reception, temperature of everything. So it would be great to hear then somewhere down there, and regionally, you're in a different location than the Northeast or Midwest. Yeah, I also, if you were willing to have us on again, I'd
Yes.
love to
Yeah,
love
yeah.
to talk about our experiences so far with the movie and the reception and what you guys end up having.
I
Yeah,
think
absolutely.
that sounds great. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And
No.
I'm gonna try. I can't promise. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to see you guys Saturday night.
What?
Yeah,
Sweet.
I live in Cincinnati. I'm a half
Oh,
hour away from Nick's restaurant.
oh hell yeah! You could go
Oh.
there and eat Saturday morning, and then come see a screening of Sweetmeats.
Well, I
Why
won't be
did
able to
you
do a
not
screening
crowdfund
of
their
it.
movie?
What's that, Kyle?
Why did you not crowdfund this movie if it was
I
right down
didn't
the
know
street?
about it until like 2 weeks ago. Well, when I brought up Tromerica, Hands Across Tromerica, that's when I found out about this movie. But yeah,
We got you our next
we got
round. The
friends
next
out of
round,
town.
we'll get involved.
Dude,
Yeah,
please,
perfect.
if you do come Saturday and you see the premiere of Sweetmeats, bug us, even if it looks like
Yeah.
we're busy talking to somebody, because we both, even though Nick is the more silent Bob of the two, Scott Mosier, but like in a public setting, he does turn it on. He's very approachable. If it looks like we're talking and you're like, oh, I don't want to bug, yeah, approachable, like get the fuck off me, don't touch me. Are you poor? But like, if what I'm saying is, if you do make it out, please bug us if it feels like, because I don't want it to be like, oh, I saw you guys there, like nice,
No.
like yeah, we got
No.
to get a
Yeah.
picture. Because
Yes.
thank you for indulging our
Yeah.
goofiness.
No, and thank
Absolutely.
you so much for taking time with us. Like I said, we're getting back into the swing of things, doing this show, and we post it. We just started Facebook, but we've got him and I have our own individual YouTube channels, and we put them on our own individual Facebooks, and we put it on in the spot. So we try to put it in as many places as possible. We're not one of them that's going to one place and try to get a lot of hits. We want it to be seen as in as many places as possible. So we will
Yeah.
spread it around and do as much as we can to help you guys, and thank you guys for helping us, because this has been a great opportunity for us, and we really enjoy it. We hope the very best of success with this movie, and the third in the trilogy and whatever else you guys have planned in the future.
Or maybe the
Awesome.
next movie is just a trilogy in itself. Who
Oh,
knows?
there we go. There we go.
What?
There you go. I'm intrigued. I
Teaser.
can sing backup to one of your songs. I can do a mau
Nick's
mau
just
thing or
like,
something.
stop it with the music. He's like, you got to be in every part of this movie. We got to hear you on the soundtrack. It's like, it's my vision, Nick. You have to help me make art, please.
Well,
I want
thank
the
you
next
guys
movie to be
again.
Smoking the Bandit the musical.
I did it.
Did you actually film it?
I have, man, I can give you a copy. I have some DVD
Oh,
copies that we did when we were in Chicago, and Timmy played the bandit, and my wife played Frog.
oh, awesome.
Yeah,
I've seen it on your, I looked at your Indiegogo profile and seeing it there. I was like, oh my God, that'd be amazing.
yeah, we did
I
it. In,
gotta see this. I
well,
had no
like
idea.
weird exclusive because no one else has brought that up. Hal Needham's widow called me 3 months ago. Well, so first called, found the phone number of the woman who directed it, Kit Rivers, and Kit, who I hadn't spoken to in a few years, for no reason, just lost touch. Called me and was just like, "Hey, I just got a voicemail from a woman who said she's the widow of Hal Needham and she's aware of our production." And she's like, "Is there anything I got to be worried about?" And I was like, "No, it was a not-for-profit show. Like it was,
Right.
we could have called it a parody. It was that like far from it. Just everything was on the nose." But we had a five-piece country band. I blended songs from like Any Which Way You Can and Every Which Way But Loose.
Oh,
So just of
really?
like of those soundtracks of that era, the first movie, the second movie, I did Beers to You. That's Ray Charles and Clint Eastwood from Any Which
Yeah.
Way You Can.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
did it with the bandit in the scene where the bandit shows up and tries to talk the snowman into going and doing the run. Where in the
Mm-hmm.
movie it's at his house and he has all those
Yes.
kids.
Yeah, yeah,
In
yeah.
this, it is the snowman's at a bar and the bandit shows up and they do a duet of Beers to You because they've had some friction between the two that some shit they have to mend. But anyway, yeah, I will happily.
Oh my God, I'd
You live in
love to see
Cincinnati.
that.
I will happily give you a copy of the DVD, one of the DVDs I have because they're just rotten somewhere in a bag.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Well, I saw
That
that
is
John
awesome.
Schneider made like a scene by scene remake of it and then
Two of
released
them.
it.
There's Sit on It, and I don't know what the
Something Pursuit.
Hot Pursuit, maybe.
Yeah, something. But I
Yeah.
mean, I'm looking at the trailer and he says it's an homage. I'm like, this isn't an homage. This
His
looks
line for
like the
line.
movie.
Yeah. He's an interesting dude too because he's got some real strong political
Oh
and
yeah.
religious beliefs that he's just like you guys know Righteous Gemstones? John
I have not seen
Schneider.
it, but it's right up my alley. But
Yeah,
I've never
you
seen it.
dig it. But John Schneider comes off as one of those like he doesn't have fans, like he's getting devotees.
Really?
Yeah, to the Church
Okay.
of John Snyder.
Okay.
Just
Interesting.
an interesting dude. I grew up going to conventions and seeing all these people like throughout the years when they weren't even charging for autographs yet. First person
Hmm.
that
God.
did was Steve Reeves, who played Hercules.
Hmm.
He charged $10 to get your photo with him, and it was with a Polaroid. And it was like one of the only conventions he ever did was in Chicago, Ray Quartz Convention, if anybody knows conventions. My dad saw that and he was just like, fuck this. I'm not paying that old ass man to get a picture of him. He don't even look like Hercules anymore. Like, I'm not going to pay $10 to get my photo with him. I bring my own camera. I pay for his autograph. Like, I'm not paying for 10. And like, he talked himself out of it and we walked back into the showroom. He's like, he probably could die soon. There's not another chance I'm going to be able to get, I'm not going to be able to get his picture with Hercules. Uh, and then,
Oh, and
Okay.
your dad, for context, is in Sweetmeats.
oh, he is Ponce de la Surge doing
Oh,
his
okay.
interpretation. So is Rick Sr. We have a mustache in common. If you didn't notice the similarities of face. Um, and the hairline that is happening quickly, faster than I would like. But he's doing his best interpretation of a Strother Martin like character because he was a big fan of his. So if you're familiar with Hard Times, Slapshot, or Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid,
Yeah.
Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, fantastic character actor who my dad loves. And so I wrote this part with him in mind. And I was like, "Can you do this?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Do you have any worries?" He's like, "No," because he's like, "You wrote all the clothes and the jewelry, the turquoise jewelry that I have in my collection." He's like, "I think I can play this character. I already dress this way."
Well, thank you guys again so much. This was incredible. This
Yeah,
is
this has been a blast.
yeah, I had a ball. We both had a ball. So thank you, and we'll hopefully see you guys again very soon. And yes, we will definitely take you up on your offer to have you back on again very shortly.
Sweet.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, gentlemen.
See you Saturday, John.
Yes.
Yes. And
Perfect.
good luck for it. Hope they pack it out, really.
I think we are, and if we sell out before, I think if we sell out by Wednesday, the 150 seater, they're going to open up their smallest one for the spillover.
Oh,
Great.
cool. Very cool.
But I mean, that would be all. I mean, that'd just be just a feather in the cap, just to be like, haha.
Excellent.
Yeah. So thank you guys, and we'll talk later.
Take it
Sounds
easy.
good.
Bye,
For
guys.
John Horton, I'm Kyle Pearson. You're watching In the Spotlight. Thank you.
Bye.
Catching you is all I want to do. Catching you, caught in the middle of love, that's true. Spend my time chasing and waiting, pedal to the metal, speeding through life, making moves, a little hesitation, saying and a praying that you'll be mine too. Not now, I can throw a net too big to ensure you won't get trapped. All I know is if I get you, I'll never let go or send you back. Catching you is all I want to do. Catching you, a warm embrace, exciting and new. When I first saw you, that's when I knew. Catching you, I'm gonna catch me a love that's true.